In this video, I'm going to talk to you about computing logs using a calculator and not using a calculator. At first, we're not going to use it, and then I'm going to show you how to check our answers. That's going to be a little bit challenging for some of the problems because some of the logs are not going to be what we call either common log with base 10 or natural log. And if that's not the case, then the calculator doesn't really have these logs with base 16 or base 18 and so on. So how do we compute them using a calculator? Or how do we check our answers? If, let's say, we hope we know what the answer is, but how do we check it? So first, let's focus on not doing it with a calculator, and then we'll move on to the Desmos. Okay, so let's say I want to compute log with base 16 of 1. And whatever answer I'm going to have, I am going to convert it to exponential form. So what that means is we're going to start with the base, we're going to write it down, then we're going to raise it to the power, whatever is our answer, and that should give us 1. So we are asking, what power can we raise 16 into to get 1? And hopefully you already know that any number to the power 0 is 1, unless there is an exception that if it's 0 to the power 0, that's undefined. But it's not going to happen here. So 16 to what power is 1? Well, that would be 0. And that is going to go into our first blank. The next question says, okay, what is log with base 18 of 18? Again, we are going to convert it to exponential form to make it easier for us. So we're going to say, okay, well, 18 to what power would be 18? And hopefully you understand that that would be power 1, because when you raise a number to a power 1, the number doesn't change. Okay, so that should be 1. Next, we are going to compute log nothing, no base of 1,000. So when you see this no base, what that means is the base is actually 10. This is the default, and this is also called common log. So even though they don't say it, the base is 10. And again, what are we looking for? We're looking for 10 to what power equals 1,000? Well, how many zeros are there in 1,000? Well, that would be 3, so that means this should be 3. Okay, the next one, I'm actually going to do the last one first because it's not as difficult, but let's save the more difficult ones at the end. Okay, so here we have log with base 7 of 49. Now, a very common mistake for people to immediately say that's 7 because you think in multiplication, but that's not what's happening here. Remember, log is a power. You are asking 7 to what power is 49? Well, the power would be 2, right? And that's going to go here. Okay, now let's look at some of these more difficult ones. Let's take a look at log with base 3 of 1 over 81. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is actually let's just say, what if it wasn't 1 over 81? What if it was just 81? Let's do that first, and then we're going to see if we can convert. That we can do, I think. 3 to what power is 81? This you kind of have to know, okay, because it's not squared, that would be 9, but it's like squared and another square. That's actually power of 4. So this would be power of 4. The answer is 4, okay? But what if it's 1 over? What is that going to do? Like, let's say, for example, I want to find what is 3 to the power of 4. Well, that would be 81. But what is 3 to the power negative 4? What does this negative represent? And some people would say, well, we're just going to pull out a negative here. No, no, no. You cannot pull out a negative from the power. What happens is that the number that you get, this 81, you need to move it to the bottom. So every time you have a negative power, it's the same thing as a positive power, but it's on the bottom. So you're going to get 1 over 81. So the answer here should be negative 4. Okay, the last one before we do the calculator stuff is we're asking, okay, log of 3 with base 9, what would that be? Okay, so this is going to be 9 to what power equals 3? So you can say, okay, well, I know that square root of 9 equals 3, and you would be right, but square root of is what power? Okay, here you need to know that square root is actually power 1/2. Okay, so that means that this answer is going to be 1/2. So that's going to be 1/2 right here. But next, I am going to show you how to do exact same thing. How do you check your answer by using Desmos? Okay, we're going to go ahead and open Desmos calculator. If we go to functions, so from main, switch to functions. you can see that you have natural log, which is ln, and then you also have the common log, which is log, but you don't have log, for example, with base 16. So what do you do? Where there's something called change of base formula. But let me show you what to do. So first, pretend there is no 16. Let's say you just want to find log of 1, log of 1. Well, we're just going to select it. You could do, by the way, the same exact thing with the ln. It doesn't matter. It's going to be give you the same answer. Okay, so you're going to first pretend there is no base, and you're going to compute log of 1. Okay, then you're going to divide it, so use a forward slash, by the log of the base, and the base is 16. And that answer will be 0, right? Okay, so again, what are you doing? You're taking, first pretending there is no base and just finding log of whatever number and then divide by the log of the base. That's called change of base formula. Now let's do exact same thing with the part B. First, we're going to pretend there's no 18 and we're going to just say, okay, what is log of 18? Well, it gives us some ugly number, but that's okay. Don't worry about that. Next, we divide. So use the forward slash where the question mark is by log of the base. Well, base is 18 and that's how you get 1. Okay, let's take the next one. Now that one is actually common log, so you do not need to do anything. That just tells you that's 3. Okay, now let's try part D. Okay, again, we are not gonna look at the base. Imagine the base is not there, so we're just gonna say, okay, what is log or log of 1 over 81? Well, it gives us some ugly number, and don't worry about that, but we need to divide it, okay, by log of the base, and the base is 3, and it just gives you negative 4, okay? Okay, let's do one more. Let's take log of 3, and then we divide it by log of the base, which is 9. Okay, and that it tells us it's 0.5. Now, usually the teacher is not going to ask you to express your answers as decimal. You want it as a fraction. But Desmos has a very handy button here, right there, and you just press on that, and that tells you that's 1/2. Okay, the last one we're going to do is log of 49. Again, we pretend there is no base, 7, like we don't see it, and then we divide by log of the base, which is 7. And that tells you that that's 2. Now let's check our answers, and we're all correct here.